You ready, baby?
Yeah, let's do it.
So today's episode may be a little faster and shorter, but still packed with tremendous content. Your Opinion Stinks opens the conversation on a hot button business topic
and flips it on its head.
Hosted by a wellness coach
And a business coach.
We break down conventional business
while building entrepreneurs up for success. Who will you agree with?
Welcome to Your Opinion Stinks. I'm Tanisha.
And I'm Tim. Thank you for listening and watching as always. If you're on YouTube, don't forget you can hit that subscribe button so that way, you're part of the action, and the alert button so that way you know when the action is happening.
Action.
And if you're on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe there too. Actually, subscribe there first because we like podcasters. I don't know. I just want you to subscribe. That's all it really is.
Just subscribe.
Just subscribe. Get it over with if you haven't done it already.
He just wants you to subscribe.
Not much. I'm not asking for much. Am I?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, subscribe then.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So here's the rundown.
All
I
right.
have two quick updates.
But
we're going fast because we have a very busy 5 days ahead of us.
Yeah.
I have a lot of work to do for a client. Tim is going to a conference. So here are my two updates.
Okay.
One, if you listened to last week's episode, you'd be very curious on whether we got squirrel food to feed the squirrel. Because if you watch the YouTube version of the show, you'll see at the beginning, I tend to add a minute to a minute and a half of shenanigans. And last week's shenanigans was me being distracted by a squirrel outside because I can see outside. And there was a squirrel that came looking for food and they haven't come in a while and I was very excited. And Tim said we could go get food and he went to get food. He got some food bricks.
Do I need to go get it so people can see it?
I don't think that's necessary. We'll show next week if it's a success. So we're gonna put the brick out there one at a time. Because they're big, heavy bricks. And hopefully the squirrels will like them.
They're getting free food, so they better like it.
Yeah. We didn't feed them French fries.
No.
Update number 2. Last week and in the weeks before, I've mentioned a monocle.
It's on the way.
It's on its way. Tim ordered the monocle. For those who are just joining us, I don't know why I'm obsessed with this monocle. I've said and thought about monocles more in the last 2 months than at any other time in my life. But I need a monocle.
Because you made a point to say something that's supposed to be intelligent or noteworthy.
I associate it with being very academic.
Most of your life, you haven't had an opportunity to be studious and academic in a way that you need a monocle.
Not to a monocle level.
Right. So now the monocle has been introduced into your life.
That's right. I'm going to get that monocle. I won't try it on until I'm on screen. I'm a little concerned. Okay. I'm a little concerned that when you mentioned my eyeball and how far it comes out, I'm a little worried that it will come out too far for the monocle to work.
That's what I'm saying.
So I don't know if there's some sort of convex monocle.
Okay, so if the monocle that we order doesn't work, I did see a monocle where it has an arm and you can wear it and it has a bridge on the nose.
Oh, like
so it's kind of like this,
like those opera glasses, but it's just one.
But no, it's kind of like that, but you can actually wear it.
Oh,
and I will look for an opera glass if that doesn't work either, because that might work out for you too.
Oh, opera glasses. Oh, can you imagine if? Oh, that's cute. All right, we're gonna get it together. It's the first phase 1 has been ordered.
Yeah, if that doesn't pan out, then we have options.
We have a plan B.
Spending all the money.
All the monies.
To get this right. Because it's all for you.
It's all for you. It's not for me.
Spending all the money.
It's for you. So, okay. those are my updates.
Okay.
We are very excited. We have to move through this quickly, Timothy, because we're going to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see Avengers Endgame, y'all.
And we're going to spoil it for everyone.
I'm going to tell you all about it now. That'd be so wrong. No spoiler alert.
You've been warned.
So-and-so dies. You're like, oh no, I hate them forever.
Captain America's an Avenger.
Oh.
So is Tony Stark.
So, today's episode is about ABC. ABC. I won't sing anymore.
Alcohol,
Oh.
batteries, and cigarettes.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's an interesting weekend. No.
Then what does ABC mean?
Well, Timothy, ABC refers to always be closing. Bum, bum, bum. I think most people, like us, we're familiar with always be closing.
Yes.
Because marketers and salespeople, like, all right, always be closing. You got to get in there. You got to always be making that offer. You got to always be moving them toward the end of the sale.
Mm-hmm.
You got to, every interaction you have, every person you talk to, always be closing.
As a matter of fact, who has that clip?
SNL. SNL, that, like, I knew about always be closing ABC before the clip. Mm-hmm. I did not know about the chalkboard and how it was referencing a scene. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the scene I'm talking about, on SNL, Alec Baldwin came on, and it was a Christmas episode, and he was coming in and whipping these elves into shape. Santa had recruited him, and he was gonna, like, y'all are messing up. He can't, and he turned around and he comes in, he's being mean to them, and they're feeling all sorts of ways. And then he pulls down the chalkboard, and it says ABC. And he's like, always be cobbling. Now he messes it up, and he said closing, but then he corrected it quickly and said cobbling. At the time, I just thought it was a really funny scene, because he's being mean to these elves, and they're all sweet with little cheeks, and it's sweet, and it's sad, and they're small, and he's being mean. I had no idea this referenced a movie that was made in reference to a play. Did you know that?
That I didn't know.
It's a Pulitzer Prize winning play that they turned into a movie. I knew none of this.
Huh. I
found this out today. I just thought it was a funny skit.
All right.
So, yeah, it was, the film, Alec Baldwin was in the 1992 film Glengarry Glen Ross. Glengarry Glen Ross.
Never heard of it.
Neither have I. And it was adapted from the Pulitzer Prize winning 1984 play by David Mamet. Mamet, is it French? Mamet. Mamet, but there's only one M.
Mamet.
Mamet.
Like Monet.
Mamet. I don't know. Forgive me, David.
David M.
David M. So, yes. So for those of you who are like, duh, it was but I think that's a testament to the fact that that is a lasting concept. I think he's the one who still popularized it in that movie. But it's something that those of us entrepreneurs and salespeople are familiar with, always be closing, always move them to the sale.
Right.
And that's come under fire because there are two camps, and I think both camps exist right now, although one is dwindling. It seems, but correct me if I'm wrong if you think that's different. One is, yes, ABC, always be closing. Got to get that sale, son. But the other camp...
Son.
But the other camp is, no, always be closing is wrong. Here's what you really need to do.
I mean, it's like what happened during the other show we did, where we had a person from a reputable company come and knock on our door.
Oh, Mandy
doing-
put it in quotes.
and doing
Reputable.
and doing door-to-door sales. It's ridiculousness. It's not the same time frame. We're not buying vacuums from you being in front of our
someone
door.
coming to the door.
It's just not happening. So there's a bit of archaicness in the whole thing of ABC because, at a moment. Okay, I'll put it this way. I remember having people harass me in stores because I would take my phone and I would scan barcodes. And they would think I'm just doing something that's breaking the law. What are you doing?
Oh, how dare you.
Like, why are you scanning this thing? Get out of our store. Like, no, I'm price checking.
Price check.
And that at that moment in time was foreign because it was still something that was new. They weren't used to you being such an informed buyer, at this stage. Mm-hmm. And now you just see people all the time just using price checker things, checking stuff on Amazon price checker and stuff like that because now we don't need the salesperson to sell us. We can sell ourselves because we can get access to the information.
It has changed the dynamic.
Absolutely. So always be closing. It fits in certain things.
It still
It's not
does.
general. It's not general anymore.
It does.
Yeah.
I found 2 interesting articles. The first is called Always Be Closing, a new take on a worn-out sales strategy
Oh,
by Tibor Shanto.
I hope this convinces me because so far I'm not sold.
Well, it's interesting
Okay.
because this person is unwilling to completely throw it away.
Okay.
Because this person believes it can still be useful. In fact, there's an argument to be made for using it more. So instead of using it once, like moving them through the sales process as quickly as possible, maybe it takes minutes, maybe it takes hours, maybe it takes days. You move them through the phases and then you move them you're always pushing. You're pushing to that close. This person is saying, what if you instead move someone through to the close over and over and over again and just take them through each objection? So let me read.
I have something for that.
Let me read a paragraph from this to break it down.
Go for it.
This person says, even short sales have defined stages: engaging, discovery, gaining commitment, and executing. I remember working with an inside sales team where the average sale was one call, which typically lasted 7 to 12 minutes. Each successful call could be broken down into the 4 stages. The proactive salesperson, quote unquote, closed each phase with agreement from the buyer before moving on to the next. The more buyers were involved in the process, the more willing they were to move forward in the sale.
So
I think that's interesting.
what this makes me think of is like the techniques for webinar sales. Mm-hmm. So typically what we're taught when it comes to doing webinars is you move people through different stages of persuasion. Mm-hmm. Attention, which is your headline and your intro. Interest, which is, answering their biggest desire. AIDA. D is for desire. That's the build up. And A is action.
Okay.
So in the A phase is when you're working the close. What we're taught mostly in webinars is that you don't close with one close. You continuously close and you do multiple closes and
Throughout
you're doing
the presentation.
No. At this phase where
At
all of
the
your
end.
at the end.
Okay.
So there would be a close that would work towards one objection, then maybe a close to another. Like one might be a money objection, one might be a time objection, one might be a commitment objection, one might be a resistance objection, anything like that. And you're just closing, and then you bring them back to the offer, closing. You bring them back to the offer, close. You bring them back to the offer. In that sense, yes, ABC does work, but I would also say that there's a resistance to that, because the more that we're taught this, the more that people are exposed to it, the less effective it works.
Yeah.
And so what we're finding is that closes like that are consistently bringing people back in are not necessarily effective, because people are used to there being certain things you're going to answer in a certain way. On the flip side of that, one of the things that's really big now, which is even things that we're instituting, is phone sales. And in that, it's following something to like that for like sales teams, where you're mostly handling objections in the conversation part of it, and then you're moving them into the close. And in the close, it's mostly just asking for permission to move forward into the next phase, which might be, may I have your permission to get your credit card to process this order, or this is the offer, whatever. So
Though
it's not exactly the same. But again, I think it's something that's moving towards where people are today.
Yeah. You bringing up the webinar example is very interesting to me, because in the webinar example, you're trying to close someone, but there isn't a conversation.
Right. So it's one to many.
It's just, yes, it's just,
well, it's one to many if it's recorded. But if it's live,
if it's recorded,
there can be opportunities to have one-on-one conversation.
If it's recorded for real and you say that, and if it's recorded and you don't say that.
Yeah.
And the person thinks it's live.
Yeah. Which most people are sophisticated. That's not the case.
Right. That's a tough one to sell.
Yeah.
But so that one's interesting, because you're having to make that case by yourself. But even in that example, you're keeping all the closing at the end. You're just knocking down each objection one after another.
Yeah, in the webinar situation, absolutely.
In the webinar, right.
Yeah, but when you're doing a sales call,
that's
when you're closing multiple times during the actual conversation. So, yeah.
And I like your other point, because it's so true that the person now is more sophisticated than the person in years past. So it's like we are more sales resistant.
Absolutely.
We want to do more research, and you better, if we're not in the right frame of mind when you come to us, then you're not going to get anywhere.
The thing that I'll kind of add to that is the whole thing of like how you get somebody into the position to start making decisions. And what I mean by that is whether it's an offer, whether it's an invitation, there's something in the verbiage that gives the end buyer, like, it puts them in a certain mind frame of what to expect. Like, I've had sales calls where the person is invited to get information and I give them information and that's it. Never an offer. And I've had people come back to like, how come you didn't close me? And there could be a number of reasons why I didn't. While on the other hand, there's people who come in for information and they get the information, but it also moves them into a close or a pitch in a close. And they're taken by that because they're like, I wasn't here for that. So then that kind of alienates them. So there's a slippery slope between those two. Yes. That I think is happening today that is definitely not present back in the day.
And I think that is a fantastic segue to the second article I found. So the second article I found, it's a very dramatic title.
Okay.
Always Be Closing is Dead. How to always be helping in 2019. So this person, Dan Tyree.
I think that's Tyre.
Tyre. Tyre. Sorry, Dan.
Tyree.
Sorry, Mr. Dan. Yo, what's up, Tyree? So he replaces always be closing with always be helping. And this is congruent with our last episode where we talked about going to conferences and retreats and whatever networking event you're at, or any opportunity for networking, even if it's not a networking event, to be helping someone. And that's why I think that was a really good transition, because you're talking about giving service.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person's like, wow, you really know what you're talking about. And they either ask for more,
Yep.
or they think of you as the go-to person, etc. So always be helping. Let me explain what this person, I'll read a thing, how they explain what always be helping is. Blake would never give up control of the sales process to a prospect. Yet that's exactly what a top salesperson in 2018 needs to do. I guess he'd be 2019. Yeah, what's with that? He talks about 2019 on the thing. Something tells me he just updated the date to make
On
it
the title?
current. Yeah,
That's
I don't know.
Possibility.
It's possible. I don't know.
Well,
Whatever.
well, no,
it
well-
still makes sense.
Well, in 2018.
In
needs to do-
2018.
Yeah, you're right.
And
Yeah.
then 2018 up
needed,
here.
That needs to be updated, sir. I'm calling you out.
That's okay. That's okay. That's all right. It's still relevant. That's why he updated the date.
Yeah, you might want to go ahead and start from the beginning on that and fix it for him as you go. I'm just saying.
Oh, should I do it again? I don't know. People will see it says 2018. I'm quoting. I'm leaving.
All right.
All
go for
right.
it.
So Blake would never give up control of the sales process to a prospect. Yet that's exactly what a top salesperson in 2018 needs to do. The always be closing school of thought ignores buyer needs entirely and places the salesperson at the center of the sales process, taking a brute force approach to closing deals. What's a sales rep to do? Always be closing? Hardly. Your job, of course, is still to sell, but abandon any strategies that involve force-feeding prospects a product they don't want and don't need. As Dale Carnegie famously said, people don't want to be sold. They want to feel as if they're buying. Instead, as your prospect moves through the funnel, provide resources and guidance as they attempt to solve a complicated business problem. Always be helping.
That was a good lead. Okay. Yeah, so I come from this place of service for most of what I do, what we do. And there's some pros and cons with it, of course. And it kind of leads more into prospecting than it does the actual level of services being applied. Because there's some people that are not in a position to buy, but they try to get as much free stuff as they can. And in that, it's not really helping anyone, because giving them the free information where they don't have the ability to apply is just wasting their efforts and their time.
And yours.
And for the person that's giving the information, it's a waste of their time, because then they could have been working with someone that's closer to a buying decision.
Yes.
On the other hand, when you come to the person that actually has the possibility, the ability to buy, then it's a matter of them feeling that you have the chops, and this being the proving ground, because they're closer to a buying decision than just someone that's prospecting for information. It's dangerous.
I love your first point.
Yeah.
Because I think the danger of this, and I don't think he warns against this, is getting into that helping mode, but accidentally becoming a helper to someone and nothing else. And so arguably some ways, and then that person just ends up using you all the time, but they're not sending you any business. They're not talking about paying you for anything, nothing, because you've positioned yourself as a helper to them. But some ways, I think it'd be helpful to talk about some ways to not fall into that trap, like this article might have you do. And one of them is to position from the beginning, like when you explain what you do or someone asks you what you do, I've heard this, like, I get paid to fill in the blank.
Phrasing, yeah. Yeah.
I ain't doing this for free.
Right.
And I think the side of that coin is putting boundaries around the conversation. So if you keep willingly talking to this person for 2 hours at a time,
You're pretty
giving
much just
them
giving them time.
all of what you would be coaching them to do, for example, then you've facilitated setting up the relationship that way. You need to put boundaries, like you hit this wall, and you don't need to be like mean about it, but it's like what I do with my coaching clients is I take them through this process and explain a little bit about it. But what I could tell you right now is this really highly effective fact. And then they take that and it's really effective and it helps them. And they're like, man, I need to be coached by this guy. Yeah.
The thing that I've discovered over the years is when having a sales conversation, and this is coming from a place of helping someone, is mostly having such a tight restriction that there's only enough time and or knowledge for this moment, and letting them know that if they want to continue beyond the moment, that at the end, I'm going to pitch you. I'm going to close you. That honesty has helped in closing some of the people that I've been able to work with, because it's not saying, okay, 45 minutes,
time's
your
up.
therapy session's done.
You're like,
I'll see you next week.
Oh.
It's not that. Because that just plain sucks. Because like you get in a groove and
boom,
and then
done.
you're just like dead.
Yeah.
But coming in saying, okay, I have 15 minutes for this before I got to get ready for my next call. This is what it's going to be. This is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to work. And then you go right into it. That has worked really, really well, especially if you have something in the front that pre-qualifies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're pre-selling at that point. But to always be helping and always be closing, there's a certain finesse that needs to happen. No matter what product or service that you're selling, there needs to be finesse. There needs to be tact, and there needs to be appreciation on all sides. Whether you're the person that's receiving the sale or the person that's giving the sale, and having this mutual understanding that on both sides, each person's time is worth something, and each person's worth is worth something.
And that's about setting up expectations from the beginning. I like that.
Absolutely.
For yourself and openly toward the person you're working with. And then getting agreement. Does that work for you?
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, that's great. I'm like, oh, okay. And then you move on, because then that's, that getting that yes from the person only helps you later.
I'll throw this one thing in also too, because I think it's really important, especially nowadays, since we have so many people that are selling their products and services through some type of direct response sale like that. You're seeing a lot of people institute sales teams. And I think that even at the top, there needs to be many techniques taught that is trickled down. So that way someone who's coming in that comes from like the old school way of closing and something is not hurting the bottom line of the company or the business or even anyone else on the team. Because again, we're in a different time, different caliber of prospect, different needs than we've ever had, which change faster. And like many thousands of marketing messages that we have to sort through. I think we said before, it was over 35,000 decisions that we go through in a day.
Oh, what'd you say? 35?
35,000, I think.
Something. 37, something.
Yeah, I can't remember the number. But,
thousands, a lot.
But yeah, University in North Carolina, whatever that stat was. In any instance, just closing consistently doesn't mean that you always have to close. And if universally we can accept that, then we have a better chance of actually serving at higher levels rather than people, feeling that they got to reject.
And I'd like to make the case for dialing in a little better, continuing to be diligent about whether or not you have successfully built rapport with someone you're trying to pitch and or build a relationship with.
A lot of that is pre-selling, definitely.
Pre-selling is a part of that. Maybe we'll do an episode on that. But what I'm talking about specifically is in the moment when you're face to face with someone. And I'm thinking of a team I worked with and 2 different vendors, salespeople from 2 different vendors that they worked with. And, there was some overlapping services, but basically they worked with these vendors for different reasons. So they weren't competing directly.
Right.
And I'm just thinking back to the emotional reaction they had to both of these salespeople who were doing the exact same thing. But I'm convinced that the difference was rapport building. Because on the one hand, because they were both building rapport, being nice and chat, whatever, breaking bread together, blah, 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 finding out what the client wants and needs for their business. This was B2B. And then introducing them and closing them on products and services that fit that need. Both of them did those exact same things. One person was completely oblivious to how turned off everyone was to the way he was presenting himself.
Okay. Yeah.
Just because someone is smiling and nodding at you does not necessarily mean they're into what you're pitching.
Right. Yeah.
The other person was so much better at rapport building and really had built a relationship. I'm your friend. I want the best for you. I'm not going to push anything on you that you don't want. But what about this? Like the tone was totally different. And the first person that wasn't really getting it, he was definitely the more traditional corporate salesperson.
Right.
Took us out for drinks, kind of made some snide comments about a presenter or something. I don't even remember, and it totally turned off the people I was with, and they just sort of looked at each other, oh,
Yep.
gross.
Yeah.
But he had no idea. So, number one, if someone's not making a lot of eye contact, if someone's body position is not welcoming, their arms are folded or their legs are crossed and their body language isn't open, or they're giving you a lot of one-word answers like yes, like okay, like haha, like that, not a good sign. Just again, those people can be smiling and nodding, and then talk such crap about you later. Whereas the other person, she was warmer. She was not the traditional stereotypical salesperson. There was a lot of letting the other person talk a lot. The first guy, he did most of the talking. He was not engaging with the person, finding things out about them and what they want and how they're doing. He was just putting on a show. And it didn't work. He wasn't even at that moment trying to sell the team on anything. But they were so turned off by him, any future conversation was completely undermined.
I've had to deal with that. Yeah, it sucks.
So be mindful. It's smiling and nodding is not enough.
Isn't that the truth?
I think we will end it there.
Okay.
Close it out, Timothy.
But I'm not always supposed to be closing.
Oh.
I'll close this time. Fine,
Oh,
whatever.
thank you.
Yeah.
I really want you to. You're a very nice man, and I feel very engaged and listened to by you.
And so, thank you for watching and listening. It's been fun. It's been a blast. If you're on YouTube, don't forget subscribing and hitting the alert button so that way you know when another episode comes up. And if you're on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe there so that way you can hear everything that's really cool and have it go directly to your device. So with that, I'm Tim.
And I'm Tunisia. And please remember, opinions are not facts. Do your research and have fun in the fight.